Your life. Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me, and if you can't, please write it on the chat. Welcome to the Atheist Line, the Israeli version of the atheist experience, brought to you for the first time in English. And the reason that I'm speaking English right now is because I am honored and I am excited, and I couldn't believe I'm saying it. I wanted to introduce you to my guest now this evening, Mr. Aron Ra, the famous, the infamous Aron Ra. How are you doing, Aron?
Doing all right. Happy to be on an international atheist experience.
Yep, that's us. So thank you. First of all, thank you very much for agreeing to host the show with me. And for everyone who's going to write in the chat that my English is terrible and I have a terrible accent, let's pretend I agree with you and move on. So I want to start with just a few announcements, like every other show. The show is, the call-in studio is on. You can call us like any other show. The number for Israeli callers is 076-5995-940. Again, 076-5995-940. And if you are an international caller, if you're someone who's listening to us across the ocean or in Europe or anywhere else, you can check in the description. There's a link there that you can sign and you can call us through the internet and talk to us like a regular phone call, and you don't need to call our regular number. So the show is about like any other Atheist Line. We're supposed to be the show will go on with a conversation with Aron. I'm want to introduce Aron to you and maybe ask a few questions for the Israeli audience. And after that, we'll take some calls. Hopefully, we'll have some Israeli believers that can manage a conversation. And after that, we'll see. If you like what we do, you can help us and support us through Patreon and PayPal. Of course, the show itself is completely voluntary. We don't earn anything, but we use that money to improve our service, to improve our production quality, and to increase our views and our spread in Israel. Aron, people are asking in the chat, what is the name of the snake you're holding?
This is a Honduran milk snake. And I got it because it looks like a coral snake, but it's harmless.
So it's we won't need to call the hospital while in the show.
Yeah, I don't have any deadly venomous in my house.
Well, great. So I think with the show is also broadcast on TikTok. So if you follow us on TikTok, you can check it out there. And I think, and of course, we want to thank our Patreons that help us through the shows and got us to where we are now, right now. And I think that's all the announcement I want right now. So I will go turn over to my guest. Aron, would you like to introduce yourself in case somebody in Israel living under a rock and doesn't know who you are?
I am not that famous. There's just this community knows who I am, I think. So I'm an activist in a sense. I like to promote secular science education and, of course, secular policies in a world that is overrun with Christian nationalism primarily, but other forms of religious dogmatism that are, I think, dangerous. In general, I think that religion, while people can point to some good that religion has done, to me, it's a feeble PR campaign that can't keep up with the awful of it all, and that religion has historically been a net negative against humanity.
Basically the same reason I think we're doing what we're doing. So
Yep.
We're in the same pool. But I wanted to first ask you, because I wanted to ask you first the difference, I think, between the conversation between apologists, Christian apologists, and maybe Muslim apologist and Jewish apologist. Because I know you've interacted in the past with a lot of Christian apologists. And first of all, somebody in our audience asked, did you ever encountered any, I say, good argument for the existence of God, or something that makes you even slightly pause and say, okay, maybe there's something here?
No. I mean, there is no argument for God that has ever made me think, oh, well, maybe you got a point. There honestly isn't. The people often ask me what is the best apologetic, but honestly, I mean, if every argument is logically invalid, where both the premises are not necessarily true, but also the conclusion is a non sequitur, when they're all that bad, then how can you say that any of them are the best? But I mean, I could say that probably the best argument that I've ever heard of, maybe as being in terms of sincerity, is that somebody believes, because of the logical fallacy of the God of the gaps, they can't explain something, or if they think science can't explain something, well, then that means that it must be magic. I can't explain it, therefore magic. Now, that's a terrible argument, but that's the best that they've got. And I get every day of my life, I get some believer telling me, well, you can't explain this, that, or the other thing. I'm like, well, actually, I can, most of those at least. But even if I couldn't, even if this was 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago and I couldn't explain any of those things, that still wouldn't be an indicator of magic. And then they say, well, I don't believe in magic. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, you do. You just don't know that you do. Magic and miracle share essentially the same definition. If you look up on different dictionaries and compare them, they're the same thing. When a god does magic, I mean, it's like, if a boat is big enough, we call it a yacht. If a person is really rich and important, we call them a VIP. If you murder a VIP, it's called an assassination. Well, the same thing applies here. When God does magic, it's called a miracle. If you believe in blessings and curses, those are positive or negative enchantments. Those are magical enchantments. That is magic by definition. Even rabbinical scholars have admitted that Adam was created as a golem spell. And Israelis know what a golem is, but Christians tend not to, so I have to explain it to them all the time. They don't even know their own theology very well at all. And it's a sad thing when I've been doing this for so long that I know both sides of this argument better than the believer knows their own alone. And so they're always telling me, well, that's not what I personally believe a God is. Well, it doesn't matter, does it? Because this is what all of these scholars throughout history have said, what their God is, what their belief is, what their faith means, whatever. And so you may try to differ from that, but even then they still end up pointing or proving the consensus. I get people telling me that faith is a belief that is based on evidence, which is exactly the opposite of what the definition of faith is. Okay, well then, if that were true, then it was evidence that convinced you. So tell me what your evidence was that convinced you to believe, and tell me what evidence could convince you that this belief is false. It always turns out they don't have evidence that got them to this point, and no amount of evidence would get them out of it, thus proving the point again. Faith is a belief that is not dependent on evidence. And although they want to tell me that I'm wrong, they prove that I'm right.
I want to share with you the argument we hear the most, because I think that's the main difference between the Christian apologetic and Jewish apologetic. Christian apologetics usually turns around Jesus. Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus is the basis of Christianity. If Jesus didn't exist, it's all false. for Jewish people, the main event is the revelation in Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai, it's the main event. And what people usually talk with us are the argument from tradition. It's our tradition. We held that tradition for 2,000 years. We went to abroad and came back. It's our tradition. And also they claim it's a witness testimony. It's like somebody was there, they witnessed it, and it went on from father to son and father to son and father to son, all the way to us. And father, and a line we hear all the time, it's like, a father will not lie to his son, so it must be true. What do you say about that?
I have the good fortune that I get to work with a lot of biblical scholars and historians, all of whom unanimously hold the position that the ones that I work with, there's very few that still believe that there was ever a Moses. Historians, to my understanding, are now abandoning the concept of Moses, that there was ever a historical Moses, that the events that are attributed to the Exodus are largely hailed as being post-exilic and more closely refer to exile from Babylon than they do from an exodus from Egypt. So this is what I'm getting from biblical scholars. And we know there was never a Tower of Babel. We know there was never a global flood as Noah's Ark. We know Adam and Eve are genetically impossible. Even Christians trained in biology and genetics have admitted this. I remember Rabbi David Wolpe in his Sinai Temple presentation in 2001 for Passover said that the truth is with very few exceptions, every archaeologist says that the Exodus did not happen the way the Bible describes, if it happened at all. So it's all huge. It's all enormously questionable. And testimony, that's what they always, when you have evidence of something, they tell you, well, that's you weren't there to see it. And I have to point out, if you saw in the new fallen snow, when you get up in the morning, you saw cleated boot prints walking up to your daughter's bedroom window, you would know that somebody walked up to that window. It's not absolute knowledge, but it's definite. It's good enough that you would know that somebody walked up to that window, even if you weren't there to see them take the steps. And if you find the person, if there's only one person on your island that has boots like that, and they say that they weren't there, well, now the evidence contradicts the testimony, doesn't it?
Of course. Yeah. I want to ask you a continuation on that question, because I heard a lot of your chats and debates with Christian apologists, and it seems like the Christians really look for the Old Testament and the New Testament on the scripture itself. They look at the text, they read the text, they turn to the text. While Judaism, it's like they invented a new thing. It's like they know that those old books, those old scriptures doesn't match reality, so they invented the Talmud and the Gemara and all the other books, the later books, and there they can do whatever they want. They can take the text and do the exact opposite, and every rabbi can do and translate and change it. And rabbinical scholarship can also decide for themselves. Like the Jewish dogma says that whatever the Jews decide, God will accept, even if it's not its main objective. If God meant something else and we got him wrong, we still should do what the rabbi says.
I'm trying to remember. I think it was Maimonides who wrote that regarding Numbers chapter 5 that if it turns out that the woman was innocent after she goes through the bitter water, which is a potion root. I mean, it's a ritual spell causing a potion. So there's no more elements of magic, right? But if it turns out that she's innocent, then she'll bear a son. So Jews may say, well, okay, we have this, Maimonides said that this is what it is, so this is what it is, but that's not in the original text. He made that shit up. But because he made it up, and because he's an authority, and that's what all these religious people believe in. They believe in authority, not fact. So if an authority says so, then that's true. Whatever the authority says is true, even if we can prove it wrong.
again, total agreement with you. I don't think I can say it different. I want to ask you
the difference between Muslim apologetics and Christian apologetics that I've seen. There was one that was quite famous in Turkey, Adnan Akhtar, also known as Harun Yahya, who is now facing multiple life sentences for sexual indiscretions with a harem of women that he forced into cosmetic surgery. But anyway, this guy built his fortune on doing apologetics. He would just copy the Christian apologetics from Answers in Genesis and basically replace every mention of Jesus with Allah, and that's it. Now it's Muslim.
That's the problem. If the same argument can get us to any other God than yours, so I think you said it multiple times. Not all of you can be right, but every one of you can be wrong.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask you about a little bit. I wanted to discuss about the differences between state and religion, between Israel and the U.S. Because I know that the U.S. is supposed to be a secular nation. The Bill of Rights and the Constitution says that no religion should possess any other religion, so everyone can have the right to believe and stuff like that. But on the other side, Israel is a very religious nation. Israel was based on Judaism, which it's very confusing. It's a religion, but it's also a nationality. You use the same word, but it's supposed to be Hebrews, maybe. But I don't know if you know this, but I want to discuss with you about stuff like, I'm a Jewish person. I'm a Jewish by heritage. I cannot marry civilly in Israel. I can only marry through a religious ceremony in Israel. If I want to marry my wife as not as a religious ceremony, I need to do it abroad. I need to do it by Zoom, but I can't do it. But and also, even if I married my wife in a civil marriage, no religion whatsoever, and I got divorced in Israel, I still have to do it through rabbinical court. I cannot do it via the state. I have to go to a Jewish court and do it by Jewish laws as a Jewish person.
Wow, that's I did not know that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. That's one of the options. Also, do you know the holiday Passover?
Yeah. In
Passover, it's illegal to sell bread products in Israel. It's illegal. If you caught doing that, you'll be fined, and you cannot. And even if there was a great commotion in Israel about a year ago because there was about hospitals. If you go to a hospital, the law stated that the hospital have the authority to look at the bag and check your bags and see if you got bread inside. If you want to go visit someone and you cannot bring bread inside, and if there was bread, you are not allowed to go in. And that law was canceled about a year ago, and there was a big turmoil, and they're trying to bring it back. I'm just giving you some examples. I think Israel is a much more religious state than the US. So our battle is probably way uphill than yours.
Yeah, sounds like it.
I wanted to ask you, furthermore, I want to ask you about about the political situation right now, because you are an atheist, you are a secular humanist, right?
Yes.
And we are also, and we try to promote liberal thinking and critical thinking and human rights and support gay rights and trans rights and everything like that. But after in the aftermath of the October 7th massacre, and as an atheist, I find myself in a really peculiar situation because I see people like Dennis Prager and Ben Shapiro, and they are the one protecting us. And I see a lot of people in the liberal community, in the atheist community, that it's like they say, Palestine rights, and nobody cares about what happened to us. And it feels to me, it's like I don't agree with Ben Shapiro practically about anything. And suddenly on that situation is on my side. And it's really confusing to me.
Right. You're saying that nobody cares about Jews compared to Palestinians?
it's not that nobody cares about Jews compared to Palestinians, but it's more on if Arabs kill Arabs, nobody cares. In Syria, in Yemen, in Sudan, the Arabs kill Arabs all the time. The Chinese put them in camps, nobody cares. But if Palestinians attack us and we are trying to defend ourselves, it's like, no, you started it. You shouldn't be there in the first place.
That is not my position.
I'm asking about. I'm not asking.
I don't know anybody that holds the position you just described. I'm not saying that they don't. I just don't know that they do. That's certainly not my position. I mean, we had, so far as I know, and I would have thought that everybody had the same, we tend to think that other people think of things the same way that we do. I mean, I would have thought that everybody agreed that when Hamas attacked Israel, that's bad. Israel is justified in defending itself, absolutely. But then after tens of thousands of Palestinian deaths, this is just vengeance now. This is way overboard. This isn't defending yourself anymore. This is well beyond that.
Okay, to be clear, to be honest, I'm an Israeli officer in the IDF, in the Israeli military. I'm on reserve. I've been to inform. I was for the last 4 months. I was on military service. So I don't want to say, to be honest, I'm guessing. I can agree why it looks like that, and maybe some of it is. But after that aftermath, after that trauma, after that massacre, don't you think, and I don't know if I know the answer to that question, but I'm asking it, I'm throwing it out there. Are we entitled? I don't know if the word is entitled, but vengeance is something that we have the right now to claim. I don't know.
According to your tradition, I mean, the Bible is full of revenge, but revenge is not valid just because it's in the Bible.
No, I'm not talking about revenge.
Vengeance is an act of evil. This is not justice.
No. I misspoke. I think I'll try to explain myself in a different way. Okay. Imagine there's a bully that harms you, and you attack him, in a way that you want to make sure that he will never attack you again. You want to make sure that it will never happen again. Isn't that justified?
Usually not. Because if you were attacked by a bully, there are a number of ways to defend yourself in that attack, to end that attack, and maybe discourage further attacks. But you could also attack him in such a way that he'll never attack you again. Like, if he punches you, you shoot him in the head. He'll never attack you again. But that's not justified. Murder is not justified for a physical assault. If it's self-defense, and there's no other way you could have defended yourself, that's one thing. But if you could have defended yourself another way, if you could have escaped another way, and you just opt to murder that guy when you didn't have to, not justified.
First of all, I want to thank you for your honest opinion. I know it's a touchy subject, and a lot of people don't want to talk about it. So I really value your opinion and your input. Before we continue, we had 2 super chats. I want to thank Amir Mizrahi that says that this show deserves much a wider audience. We agree. Also, you should incorporate marriage for the host and even sell it to the general public. Maybe, I don't know. And another one, Black Unicorn, says for divorce in Israel, it depends on where you submit your divorce document. If it's a rabbinate or court, you can divorce in a secular way. And no, it's not. Whoever wrote that is wrong. It depends on your origin. If you are not Jewish by origin, by the by rabbinical state, you can do that. But if you are Jewish and the Jewish institution knows that you are Jewish, you cannot do that. No. Aron went away. I think I'll wait for him to come back. I think it's time. Maybe we'll take a few calls. Let's see if we'll be able to.
All right, I'd be happy to.
Oh no, I didn't know if you can hear me. Maybe we'll. I'll ask a few questions later, but right now we have a few callers, and I think it's a great time to take a few calls. let's see. I have Matt, who is agnostic, and he wants to talk about reconciling satanic ideology with a rationalist worldview. I don't know what that means. Matt, can you hear us? Matt? Oh, wait, I think I know why. No, wait. Now we can hear us. Matt, can you hear us?
Hey, hello, yes.
Hello, Matt, how are you?
Can you hear me? I'm doing fine. How are you?
Great. How are you doing?
Sorry?
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and I would like to thank Aron in person for coming over the show today. I'm very thrilled about it. I've watched his debates over the years with religious people, and they're vividly entertaining.
Thank you kindly.
So, yeah. Well, would you like me to present my question?
Please.
Oh, okay. So my initial question is regarding your Satanist worldview. I suppose that you still identify as a Satanist. I am aware that there are many factions within Satanism. And I am also aware, of course, that you don't worship a literal devil or anything of the kind. At the same time, I do keep wondering, how do you square your Satanist ideology with your rationalist worldview? I mean, given that indulgence and a certain type of carnal hedonism is part of the Satanist ideology, it seems to me to be a very contradictory kind of combination.
Yeah, I'm not aware of this these aspects that you're talking about. And maybe you're referring to the Church of Satan. I don't know about them. I joined the Satanic Temple for political reasons, because I wanted to lend support for their defense of our First Amendment rights. You know, freedom of religion.
I think you should explain about the Satanic Church, because I don't think our listeners knows about it, and they wrote in the comments. It's like I don't think it means what they think it means.
Yeah, it never does, and that's fine. So LaVeyan Satanism, started by Anton LaVey, the Church of Satan, in 1966. Anton LaVey said at that time that it was an entirely atheist organization, that none of them believe in a literal Satan. But they were more right wing, I think, than the Satanic Temple. So the Satanic Temple is more toward the human rights aspect, or the way I like to put it is that Satanic Temple is more like secular humanism dressed for a black metal concert. Yeah. So I mean, as far as what got me was the 7 tenets. So I mean, that summarizes what the Satanic Temple is. One should strive to act with compassion and empathy toward all creatures in accordance with reason. That's 1. 2 is the struggle for justice is an ongoing and necessary pursuit that should prevail over laws and institutions, which means that laws can be passed by people and be immoral, and sometimes we have to counter those and correct them. And 3, one's body is inviolable, subject to one's own will alone, which is one of the reasons that we advocate for the right to abortion. And then 4, the freedoms of others should be respected, including the freedom to offend. To willfully and unjustly encroach upon the freedoms of another is to forego one's own, which I find value in that. Number 5, beliefs should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. One should take care never to distort scientific facts to fit one's beliefs. So again, we're all atheists. We're all accepting of mainstream science and so forth. And then 6, people are fallible, and if one makes a mistake, one should do one's best to rectify it and resolve any harm that might have been caused. And that's what we were just talking about a moment ago. One of my biggest issues with a lot of the aspects of, like, hell, for example, it's utterly pointless. There is no reason or value in keeping somebody alive to torture them forever over any kind of crime, even if it was a crime, even if it was immoral, even if those people were evil. There's no justification for a hell-like damnation. There should be some.
Yeah, I would just briefly remark that I would just briefly remark that usually, well, in modern Christianity, the understanding is a little more flexible today regarding hell. Hell is more of a, well, I think most Christians today, especially, Christian theologians, would say that hell is a separation from God. It's not a literal blazing furnace where you burn people alive for eternity.
Yeah, well, there are some who say that.
In today's world, I think
there are some who say that, but I live in Texas.
I think most Christians today would, yeah, okay.
I live in Texas. We're surrounded by Southern Baptists and Pentecosts, and they are absolute Bible thumpers that you are going to damnation, fire and brimstone. And that's lake of fire for all eternity. They can't stop talking about the endless torture.
Well, mainline Protestant churches such as the Anglican Church or the Lutheran Church, I think they're a lot more. Their view of hell is I think vastly different to that of evangelicals. But that's just a side note. I don't wish to, Yeah. Well, so
Episcopalians and Methodists are as you said.
Matt, we have a lot more callers. If you have any more quick questions, otherwise, I want to go to the next caller.
No, you can move on. I think his answer was very satisfactory.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thank you for your call. And as always, you're always welcome to call us back. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Shalom.
Thank you.
Okay, let's talk. I hope that it will be okay. We have a believer. His name is Ben. And he wants to talk about the difference between spirituality. I don't know what that means either. Ben, can you hear us?
Neither do they.
Ben, can you hear us? Ben,
yes.
How are you?
Yes. I'm doing fine. How are you guys?
We're great. How are you doing?
Aviv.
Why are you talking like this? Talk to me, please. Talk in English. If you have to, I can translate Hebrew to him.
Okay.
But I want him to understand what we're talking about.
No problem. What's up, Aron?
How you do?
What's your question? What's your argument?
First of all, I want to say that my English is not that good. Okay, so you guys,
if necessary, I will help. No problem.
Yeah, your English is better than my Hebrew. I only know 2 words, so go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, as someone that grew up as in a religious house, I found when I grew up, I understood that religious is like something that people just made up. Okay, but then let's say my question is: do you, Aaron, think that there is a difference between religion and spirituality?
I see charity as being a PR stunt, and that's it. And if it's not just a PR stunt, then it's a scam. So, like we had a preacher here in Dallas, where I live, Reverend Bobby Tilton, who was taking in tens of millions of dollars a year for an orphanage that was supposed to be in Haiti that turned out not to exist.
Okay, so what's the point? That wasn't my question.
Oh, okay, so maybe let's try it this way. One second, I'm sorry. אתה רוצה לשאול את זה בעברית במהירות אותי ואני אתרגם? I ask him if he wants to ask me in Hebrew and I will translate. תגיד לי את זה, say it in Hebrew fast and I will translate it to Aaron.
האם הוא רואה הבדל בין רוחניות לדת?
Okay, so what he's asking is, again, even in Hebrew, it's not well articulated, but I'll try. It's like he's talking about spirituality and religion. And maybe, I'm guessing the question is, can somebody be spiritual and not religious? That's what you're asking?
Yeah, might be.
It depends on how we define each one. The definition that I use for religion is a faith-based belief system that posits the notion that a supernatural essence of self somehow survives the death of the physical body to continue on in some other form. Now,
No, that sounds religious, man.
yeah, that's the definition of religion. Yeah.
Okay, but I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about being spiritual, man. You know, I don't know, believe in destiny or something like this, and karma, which means that if you do good, you know, the nature will give you good, something like this. You know, not talking about religious and rules.
I don't understand what is spirituality.
How do you define spirituality without religion? What is spirit? What looking at a great work of art in a museum and feeling moved, is that spirituality for you?
I don't know, doing something good or doing something bad. And when you do something bad, you just go out the street and a piano falls up your head. Okay, something like what's the
again try to ask me in Hebrew and I will translate.
מה הסטטיסטיקה שאדם יצא לרחוב וידרס פתאום? אז אני אומר, אם הוא עשה משהו רע, קיבל המכה שלו.
לא הבנתי עוד פעם?
אני אומר שדברים רעים קוראים לאנשים רעים. בלי קשר לאלוהים או משהו. סתם קרמה.
Okay, so he's asking, I don't think it's true, but he's asking something on the vicinity of karma. It's like bad thing happened to bad people and good thing happened to good people. I don't think the data support that notion, but what do you think?
There is a degree to which we can expect that if you are good and kind and charitable to people, that people will generally be good and kind and charitable back. Whereas if you're a dick to people, of course, they're going to respond negatively. But at the same time...
Not only people, you know, sometimes. At the same time. Okay, go on.
Well, I was going to say, at the same time, I've seen terrible, vicious, self-centered, narcissistic assholes just crush everybody under them so that they can get what they want without any compassion at all, and they just get away with it. And then I find that, you know, there are good and decent people who have been victimized by the world and by circumstances and so forth around them. They who live terrible lives. They're always poor. They're always sick or sickly or in pain, and they did nothing to deserve all of these things that keep happening to them. Now, maybe if they were a little bit more, you know, maybe if they had a bit more wisdom, maybe they could have avoided some of this, but it doesn't explain everything. You know, I mean, there's some people that just have a bad time of it, or that the situation was going to happen that way anyway, no matter what they do. And we can't say that there's karma acting for them. They did nothing to deserve this. And the other people who are getting away with it don't deserve what they got away with. I used to believe in karma. I did. I don't anymore.
Okay, Ben, was that satisfactory?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so thank you again for your call.
Last thing.
Again?
You know what? Yeah, thank you guys. No, never mind.
Thank you. Have a great week. Good night. Once again, I'm telling you, the guys, the lines are open. We have callers, but you can always call. We believers still get priority. And again, if you are living abroad and you want to call us, you can do it via the link in the description of the YouTube video. Just click on it and you can call us. Any guys who want to ask questions in the chat, if you'll ask them via super chat in Hebrew or in English, I will ask Aron if you don't want to call us. I want to do one more. Let's talk to Mary. Mary is an atheist, but I think she want to ask you, how do you deal with the claim that sometimes it's worth living in a lie to be happy? Sometimes if religion makes you happy, why take it away from people? Mary, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Wow, I'm shaking. I admire you both very much.
So it's Mary, a guy. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, no worries. I came to you tonight with this question. How does one refute the argument of being unwilling to find truth in order to live happy and satisfied? I personally always answer that there is a price to not knowing the truth, and it may affect and harm not only yourself, but your family, your friends, and the people around you. However, what does one answer when such person says they are willing to accept the price? Is there even anything to say? And is there any data that might convince them otherwise, or a hypothetical? Or is this just something that you think you should accept and respect, but maybe not always support or even allow in certain cases? And if you do think that you should respect such a view, is there somewhere that you can pinpoint and say, this is the line, and more than this, I will not allow?
I have dealt with many, many believers who have confessed in one way or another that to some degree, they either know that what they believe or what they make believe is not really true. Or if they don't already know that they don't really care whether it's true or not, they just want to believe it. The way I've heard it is, these may be what the facts are, but I prefer to believe this, or why does it have to be true before I believe it? Why can't I believe what I want to believe, even if it's not true? Some have even admitted that even if they knew for certain, if they had proof that what they believe is not true, they would still believe it anyway. At least there's an admission that they cannot be reasoned with, that they know that what they believe is not the truth. And so I don't need to talk to them anymore. You run along and have your little game of make-believe, and I'm going to go talk to the adults now.
Okay, Aaron, I want to ask you on that subject. In a few days ago, there was a big article in the biggest newspaper in Israel about one of our greatest brain scientists who just got a major award. And they asked him, because he's a brain scientist, they asked him about the brain, and he's saying outright, there's no free will, everything is the brain, no soul, no soul whatsoever. We live, we born, we live, we die. There is no soul, there's no, but he is Jewish. He wears a yarmulke, he prays, he's an Orthodox Jew. He doesn't believe in intervening God, but more of the Spinoza God, God of nature, without a will, without a way, without anything, but it still do every of the ceremonies because of the tradition. What do you say to someone like that, who is, again, is a brilliant scientist, one of the best in his field? I read that article and I was struck. What do you say to someone like that?
Okay, so somehow he's managed to believe that there's a God, but he doesn't believe in a soul, and that's fine, because originally Judaism was very much like Greek Hellenism. They didn't believe in an afterlife per se. There was a Hades or a Sheol where the dead would go to be dead, and it was just under the ground. You put them, you bury them, they're in the ground, they're dead in the land of the dead. And so this seems to be what this guy is thinking. Now, he somehow still believes in a God, and that could be, as you put it, Spinoza's God. And there are lots of people, as I mentioned a moment ago, that find emotional solace in believing in that. And I don't care if that's what he believes, because it doesn't involve legislation wherein I don't have to respect claims about a God. On the other hand, I totally agree with him. I've talked to so many neuroscientists and neurophilosophers and so on that are quite adamant there is no soul. It's not like there's not evidence for a soul. There's sufficient evidence against one that there is no soul. We're done. So if you want to imagine an afterlife where your soul goes to, well, if we don't have a soul, then it can't go to the afterlife, so there's no afterlife either. If you want to believe in a God, and maybe you want to imagine that there's some kind of purpose or utility, for the universe intended somehow in advance. I don't personally think that makes any sense, but a lot of other people embrace that idea.
Again, that person, sorry to interrupt, that person said he doesn't believe in intervening God, no Mount Sinai, no nothing. He's saying, I do what I do because of tradition, because if I won't do that, the tradition will go away and we will lose something. I don't know what we'll lose, but we'll lose it.
I know Buddhists who are the same way. They have no religious belief at all, but they still want a cultural trapping of religion. They still want somebody that wears the orange saffron and somebody to wear a wreath of flowers and chant some comforting words around a koi pond with a. So they want that kind of environment. And as a matter of fact, I completely understand that. My wife wanted a kind of a wedding like that. She wanted some of the trappings of that because it's, a wedding is traditionally a cultural thing. So we went to a Thai Buddhist temple and we had our wedding in the gazebo. It wasn't performed by Buddhists. It was performed by a humanist celebrant, but we still had that kind of the Eastern tradition and all of the Asian decorations and all of that. So I get some of the, humans like culture. Humans are the only animal that we know of that has culture. So I get that.
I want Matt, Mary, Matt, not yellow. First of all, I want just to add my 2 cents to that equation. The problem with people who believe because it makes them feel good, okay, I don't want to take anything from you, but think about it that way. When they are a part of a group, I'm enabling the entire group. It's like, I'm Jewish, they're putting the stuff in a group with the extremists, and we hear the extremists, we don't hear them. It's like someone like Jordan Peterson that everybody listens to when he's talking about how great Christian faith is, but he's talking about some weird Christian God thing that almost nobody believes in. But then the extremists can tell, look, Jordan Peterson, he's irrational, he's somebody who's clever, and he believes in a God, and we are entitled to do so as well. So you see what I'm saying? It's like he's making their position seems less radical than they are. So for me, that's the problem. It's okay, Mary?
I wanted to ask specific. Yeah, I can. I wanted to ask specifically about when it comes to legislation. I want to ask Aron Ra, is there a rule of thumb that you follow as to when you would stop talking to that person and act against them even? Or is there like some sort of border that before you cross it, you can live with their effect on your life? For example,
let's pretend for the sake of argument that someone is named Kent Hovind. For the argument of.
Okay.
If I understood the question, it was a 2-part question. Where is the line where I stop dealing with that person, and where is the line where I start acting against that person? The line where I stop dealing with them is when I see that they're insincere, when they only ask me questions they hope I don't have the answers to, when they ignore the answers that I do have, or when they admit that they're not going to change their mind no matter what the truth is. I no longer need to deal with them. When I start working against them is when they have this position and they wield power, especially political power. If they have an audience, if they're influencing people, they're misleading other people, and I can see other people start to cite, hey, this person said this and I'm going to believe them, well, then it's necessary for me to counter the lies that person is spreading.
All right. Mary? I appreciate this very much.
Thank
you for your call.
Thank you.
Thank you for your call, Mary. Have a great day and great
nice evening.
Bye-bye.
You as well.
Before we go on to our next caller, I want to ask you, Aron, about a touchy subject. Sorry about the phrasing. I want to ask you about circumcision, because it is still a great taboo in Israel. For circumcision is widely available. Almost all Jewish people do it, even atheists, even liberals. And it's like, I support body rights and support the woman's right to choose and all of that, and transitioning and all of that, and still they circumcise their babies because it's cultural, because it's the argument we hear a lot. It's they afraid what will happen to the child when you go to kindergarten or school or the army, and people shout together and boys do it together, and he will feel left out. What do you say about that? I'm happy you're kidding, but I'm telling you, this is the main argument we hear all the time. This is basically the best argument they have.
That was what I got when my own son, when his mother insisted that he be circumcised. And if she was going with a religious cultural thing. She wasn't even a believer. It was just a cultural thing that she was doing for basically the same reasons that you're describing. And my son doesn't feel that he was harmed. As an adult, he doesn't feel that he was harmed by this. But I feel that if I could have avoided someone taking my choice away and say, here's an infant child, they're not going to have any amnesia, or they're not going to have any anesthetic. We're just going to do this thing. And there's a risk that we might, fuck up and accidentally chop his dick off, or we'll have the rabbi slurp on it for a moment to get the excess blood on, or any of those other grotesqueries, right? The bigger issue is there's no reason to do it. Done. Over with. It's not like, we're on God's recall. It's like God said, oh, wait, hey, I designed you perfectly because I'm an infallible being, but we do have this one manufacturer's defect. I need everybody to cut the tip of your dick off. That's obscene. And there's no purpose in doing it. Some people might say, well, it's easier to clean. So what? That's not an excuse. It also makes entry a whole lot easier during sex with a woman. When you're doing this, you're impeding your own ability to enjoy sex, and you're impeding her ability to enjoy sex. That's the only reason they're doing it in the first place, is because Abrahamic religion has these huge hangups against enjoying sex. So there's no reason to do it. There are good reasons, several good reasons not to do it. And if I wasn't circumcised, if for whatever reason my parents had a moment of rationality when I was born, and that I was spared that, I would have no problem being in a shower full of circumcised men. I would stand more boldly, more dick out than I normally do, because I know that I would stand out more than they do. And I've met people that have the uncut penis, and they're quite proud of it. There was one of the American family values people that was absolutely against homosexuality. He spends his career hating gay people until he's caught going into a hotel room with a Brazilian rent-a-boy, and the rent-a-boy has a resume that brags of an 8-inch uncut penis. Uncut. Ooh, special, exotic. Extra long. So yeah, I would boast about that if that were my case. It's not like I think that anybody would been deprived by, oh, everybody else has this ridiculous battle scar of their shitty ass culture, but I'm the only one that doesn't. Please mar me so that I can be just as abused as everybody else. No, I can't share that opinion.
There's an old Jewish joke that says that Jewish people are optimistic because they cut in the only place that they think it will be long enough.
And it's never long enough, is it? I mean, everybody wants a bigger dick.
That's an old joke. Let's talk to another caller. Let's see, we have several. Let's see where we go. I think there's an easy question. Let's talk to Daniel. Daniel is an agnostic, and he wants to ask where's atheism is going. I don't think it's going anywhere, but let's see. Daniel, can you hear us?
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. My question is basically, I want to know if you agree, like, with modern atheists like Douglas Murray and Sam Harris. They are more into the Islam. I think they see maybe there is more of a clash between Islam and atheism, because Islam, basically the Quran, has a thing against non-believers. And Judaism doesn't really have that, and Christianity, I'm really not sure. But I see,
I would say that
I
Judaism,
think
at
you're
least
probably
in the
more
Bible,
familiar than
definitely
me
has
with
that.
Sam. Well, not like Islam. Islam actually mentions non-believers.
Yeah,
And
the
the main
Quran
enemy
says several times.
Islam is the non-believers. It's the atheists. It's not the Christians and the Jews.
Yeah, the
And
Quran says several times.
Douglas,
let Aaron answer. Let him answer, Daniel. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't answering. I was interrupting, but I will continue the interruption. Let him continue the question. The Quran says several times.
Yeah, my question is based. Oh, sorry. Continue.
There must be a delay.
Yeah, probably there's a delay here.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is basically, if you agree with them that there are levels to this, and Islam is basically more dangerous to atheists. And secondly, I don't want to connect with this current war, but a lot of people see this war as like a look to the future, and maybe because you see people like Douglas Murray getting more popular, and he's basically saying, look, this will happen like maybe 50 years, 100 years. There will be a clash between Islam and maybe the Western world. So what do you see in the future? Do you see atheism clashing with Islam, or do you see maybe do you think Christianity or Judaism is more dangerous?
Well, I see atheism clashing with Islam already quite a lot, and it's just not happening much in the United States where I live, but it is happening. I talk to people from Bangladesh, from Saudi Arabia, from Malaysia, whatever, and Islam is making terrible inroads in there. And there are people that are being oppressed and that are being attacked if they ever speak out on their atheism. And very often they have to become refugees. I've talked to people like in Europe, people from Saudi Arabia who had to flee to Europe to get away, to save their lives from the Muslim countries that they were in. I was on a panel with a number of Muslim speakers or Arabic speakers who were all raised in Islam, and most of them had to keep their cameras off and use fake names because they still lived in Muslim countries and couldn't be identified. So yeah, there's a huge problem, and the conflict is already happening. I've read that Saudi Arabia is complaining that even in their own country, where announcing yourself as atheist is a death sentence, they still have a problem with unbelief, with people who are atheists living among them, who maybe be forced to be quiet about it, but that doesn't change the fact that they exist, and they're in growing numbers.
Put my 2 cents in. I think Sam Harris said it best. It's like all religions are bad, but some of them are better. Some of them are worse than the other, and I think we can definitely agree that nowadays Islam poses a much greater threat to, let's say, world peace or to Western society than any other major religion. That's my opinion right now. But again, it's not like the other. So if it's not Islam, let's go Christian or something like that. No.
Yeah, there are Christian nationalists in my country right now who are advocating that atheists and homosexuals should be put in concentration camps, locked behind cyclone fencing until we go extinct.
Yeah, and one of them is running for president, isn't he?
I don't think Trump has ever said that. A lot of his supporters.
I don't think you have the mental capacity to articulate the sentence, but that's me. I always joked about if Trump get elected and we have Bibi, and it's like imagine an alien landing and is talking to you, take us to your leader. Like, no, you laugh at us.
Yeah. I would suspect that Donald Trump probably believes in God, but that he is the furthest thing from a Christian. He just knows who butters his bread.
I agree completely. Any more question, Daniel?
Well, I'm not sure, like, you didn't really address Islam, but the host kind of did. But I'm really curious about this. Like, maybe you're familiar with Douglas Murray. I think it's very popular now in Israel.
I've never heard of him.
Do you agree with that premise? You've never heard of him? Okay.
I've never heard of him.
Do you agree with that premise that
Douglas Murray is an atheist? a right wing atheist who's right now really outspoken against Islam and against what's happening in Europe with the Islamic situation there. That's Douglas Murray.
No, one of the reasons that I became an activist was because I saw the desecularization of the United States as paving the way for the Islamification of the United States. When I started my activism, Christianity was already in a state of decline, but Islam was still the fastest growing religion on earth. And that meant, logically, 25 years ago, that at some point relatively soon, Islam was going to eclipse Christianity. So if the United States already has all these faith-based initiatives and all of these things, and all of our protections against religion have been removed from the Constitution, then we would become an Islamic state very, very quickly. And if you want an example of that, look at Egypt, where just 25 years ago or 20 years ago, they were laughing at them being a country where women would have to wear the hijab and all of this. I remember seeing this, it was a political meeting, and they were literally laughing at what they thought were alarmist claims. And 20 years later, they've come true. And they were laughing when they should have been concerned.
Yeah, my question is basically, so if that's so, if you agree with me, that I'm glad that you agree with me, then I wonder why most progressives in the United States and actually all over the world, they don't support Israel, like, for example, Sam Harris or Douglas Murray, because I think those two understand that Islam and atheism is on a clash.
Yeah, but we already talked about it, Daniel. We already talked about that. Aron isn't the head of atheism. He can't say about what other people think. He only can say what he thinks, and he told us what he thinks. So I don't think that we can go there right now.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that nobody supports Israel. I mean, even in the atheist movement, I would say that we're not going to do as Christianity does, where we're not going to say that we're going to support Israel no matter what. You know, that we're going to...
Right, but it's interesting that the Christians are supporting Israel, like the conservatives, and not the atheists. This is what is interesting, I think.
Yeah, we talked about it before. We talked about it in the beginning of the conversation. I don't think we have anything.
I don't remember anybody bringing up Nazi atheists.
No.
I don't believe I've ever heard of a Nazi atheist.
Well, that's it. Actually,
sorry, what?
No, I'm just adding there's a lot of callers that call us that claim atheism is bad because Nazi Germany was
Christian creationists.
Yeah, they think they were atheists. Then they changed the argument to Russian communist or China. And
then what was the cause? Yeah, Stalin killed millions of people. How did he do that? By rejecting evolution. Specifically.
Exactly. No, that's our answer usually. That we said nobody did it. And nobody did it in the name of atheism. Nobody did it say because there's no God, let's kill everyone. Nobody said
and
it.
The Nazis were a Christian organization. Adolf Hitler described himself in Mein Kampf as a Christian and a creationist. He always only ever described himself as a Christian, both publicly and privately. I have heard that later on, toward the end of his life, that he expressed concerns with Christianity as a political faction or what have you, and certainly as they were impeding his plans. But to my knowledge, he never contradicted his belief in Christianity. And certainly when he started the Nazi everything, it was all motivated by religion, and he expressly said so.
Okay, Daniel?
And then the Ku Klux Klan is another one. Strictly not just Christian, creationist. They state openly on their own websites, they do not accept evolution. They were created by God, separate from what they perceive to be all the other races.
Okay, Daniel, did that answer your question? Thank you. Yes, thank you very much.
Have a great night and a great week. Thank you for your call.
Thanks.
I must admit, I'm a little bit surprised because we had calls and we still have callers, but still no one called about evolution. We brought you the master of evolution. and nobody called about it. Just for you to know, the debate for evolution in Israel isn't really a debate. They almost never teach it. Only when you go to college, they teach evolution. They don't teach it in primary school. They don't teach it in only on special classes in high school. They don't teach only when you go to college. Then you hear about evolution. And I thought people will want to talk to you about that, but nobody's talking. So, again, another thing interesting about Israel that other people don't know about. Of course, you're familiar with the genetic test, the 23andMe, all those genetic tests that you can make and send your DNA to a company, and they tell you which your relatives and your genetic origin and stuff like that. Yeah. That is forbidden in Israel. It's not allowed. You cannot do that because they fear people will find out they are not from Jewish origin, and they will trample the rabbinic institution. So
in a hilarious story, there were I think it was a German couple that in the 90s or 2000s, it wasn't 2000s. There was a German couple that did that 23andMe kind of thing, and they found out that if they were racist, they identified as Nazis. But it was in the 2000s, not the 1940s. It was in the 2000s. They were extremely anti-Semitic, and their genealogies came back, or their genetic phylogenies came back to reflect that they were Hebrew.
That's great. It's like those. Damn, that's a kick to the crotch. How do you reconcile that? What? Thinking about opening the letter, and it's like, okay.
There was another guy that was on a live TV show, and he had his ancestry done, and he was a white supremacist, and it turned out that he was 14% sub-Saharan African.
I think the Hebrews are worse. I think if it's someone to find out, for a believer to find out there is no God. You open the letter, there is no God. Now you need to rethink all your life choices. That's for me. That's me. I want to take the next call, but before we do, I need to do a little bit of preparation and to explain to you about what the caller wants to talk about. So in Israel, we have a lot of Orthodox Jews. There are the Hasidic Jews, about somewhere between 12 to 18%, depends on the way you count them, of the population are Hasidic Jews. The Orthodox Jews, they live usually among themselves. They dress the way you see it in the US, with the coats and the even in hot summer, 40 degrees Celsius, and they still dress with coats and hats and stuff like that. And they really care about modesty. So they don't. The women always go with clothes all the way to the floor and sleeves all the way to the hand. They wear wigs or hats so you won't see their hairs, their hair, and they really the thing that we talk about, the major issue with them in the last decade are separation between men and women. So when they have their special buses, women sit in the back, men sit in the front. You cannot, if you're a woman and you're sitting in the front, they will send you back. They will spit on you. Hey, idiot.
You can't sit with your wife on the bus.
No, you cannot. And on those,
you can't escort your daughter on the bus.
No. Again, the law. I'm telling you right now, the law says that they can't do it, but they do it anyway. It happens all the time. And women shoot photos with the cell phone, and they show how people urge them to go to the back and don't sit in here's the seat for men and only for men and stuff like that. And also there are separate beaches. They go to a beach that is separated by screens, so men go to one side, the women go to the other side. And lately there were talks of the main issue in the last few years are events that are held in public. Events that are held in public, like, music festivals or something like that, that they request that will be separated, men on the one side and women on the other side, and screens between them. And of course, the secular side hardly against it, and the fight rages on. So our next caller, she wants to talk about, she's saying she's an atheist, but she wants to ask you about, okay, let's say that Hasidic women want that separation. They want it. It's their choice. As liberals and feminists, and we support women's choice, what's the problem to giving it to them? That's what she wants to talk about. Harmony, can you hear me?
Let her ask.
Hi, what's up?
Yeah, that's what she wants. I needed to make the
Hi,
preparation before.
Actually, I'm not talking about Hasidic women. I'm talking about even lighter religious people, and we're talking about events that are taking part in the public. Like there are massive prayers in the public during Yom Kippur in Dizengoff, in Kikar Dizengoff, and the whole area is not separated, but they asked for a little bit of the area to be separated for the women who want to be separated. And the religious women I work with, they tell me, what's the problem? We want to be separated. Why can't you allocate a little bit of just a small area for us to be separated the way we want to be separated? We are not talking about separating the whole occasion. We just want to be allocated a small area to be separated in. A small area of the whole occasion or the festival or whatever it is. We want to be allocated a small area for us to be separated in. What's the problem with that? They asked me. And I have a problem with answering them because they want to be separated, and they want to be separated in a small area, not the entire public, just a small area to be allocated for them. So what's the problem in that? What's the harm in that? That's what they asked me, and I have like they say that there's like a steep slope that they give. If you give religious people the finger, they want the whole hand. But if they say that there is a secular, they force people to behave secularly against their own will. So I wanted to ask you, where do you stand on that? And if you have any, I don't know, any ideas on what would you answer a woman like that, a religious woman like that?
I am having such a problem even relating to that. I'm trying to imagine being so privileged that I would demand, well, I'm a special sort of person, and I want a special place for special sorts of people like me who are oh so special and need to be separated from everybody else. I see it as the height of arrogance. I'm open to that maybe I don't understand their perspective at all. I've never heard of this before. This is just my gut reaction. But that's what it seems like. Arrogance. Well, aren't you privileged? And I think they need to get over that.
Well, they say that it's the opposite way, because if they have like men in the general public, they cannot enjoy the occasion at all. They cannot join the public in this event because there are men there, and it also goes, of course, the other way around. Religious men will not go to a place that has women in it. There is actually a very, 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 very well-known singer who, when he performs and there are women in the audience, he covers his own eyes, so he will not see women.
Yes, she's right.
I'm sorry. I live in the ever so jaded United States, where
doesn't seem so bad right now,
yeah,
right?
we can go to the beach, and
yeah.
Even if we were to find a nude beach, the way that things are in the U.S., I can hang out with a bunch of girls in bikinis, and I am expected to control myself. There are laws that if these women just all strip naked.
But what's the problem with allocating places gender-wise?
Okay, hold on. Like, if all of these women strip naked, even though it's illegal for them to be naked, if they all strip naked around me, I'm still expected to maintain my composure and not assault them. So when it's hard for me to relate to somebody saying, well, here I am.
It actually goes deeper than that. In Judaism, they say that there's like a very well-known story that a person had a beautiful daughter, and he said that she should kill herself because she makes the man next door elated too much. I mean, it's even wrong to think thoughts like that.
That's exactly what Aron was saying.
Is wrong because it takes you away from.
But that's what Aron was saying. He's saying you need to compose yourself. She doesn't need to kill herself because you can't compose yourself. And also, if I can add my perspective, because it is something I'm a little bit more experienced because I know that situation. The fact that they can say, give us our space, please consider our faith, that's secular liberalism. This is our way. Judaism doesn't allow that. Judaism doesn't allow a place for atheists to exist. So you take our liberal thoughts, you take our liberal stance, and you use them against us, because we say this is a public space. You can pray in 600 temples in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is the most secular city in Israel, and there are 600 temples in there right now. All of those places are segregated. Women sit separately, and you can pray there wherever you want. You want to pray in public, you will accept the public domain, and you will accept the rules that they go by. And Tel Aviv is a secular city. You want to pray in public, go do it in some place. They don't care about it. But you cannot expect the citizen of Tel Aviv.
So what you're saying is if you want to have a segregated occasion, go to a designated place that it's already segregated.
Do it.
That's
Nobody cares if you do it.
Right?
Nobody cares if you do it privately. Go rent a hall. Do it. And it happens all the time. How many Jewish Hasidic weddings are segregated? Women's and men sit separately in the entire occasion. They never see each other.
Yeah, of course. And they segregate.
It's private. Nobody cares. Nobody say anything.
Occasion, as we all know, it's true.
But again, it's private. When it's private occasion, do whatever you want. If it's the public domain, you will go by the public rules, and the public rule says that there will be no segregation between women and men. I don't think that's hard to grasp. I think they did it mostly for political reason, and I think that after the October 7th, I think everyone should start feeling and thinking a little bit differently. But that is my thoughts on that.
I can only speak.
As we all know, after October 7th, everyone is getting stronger in their previous opinions, as I am well aware. I mean, all the religious people around me are just being more religious than before.
All right, help me, because I'm the ignorant American here.
Aaron is trying to ask a question. Aaron is trying to ask a question.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Help me, because I'm the ignorant American here, much to my chagrin. What happened October 7th?
If you want the answer what we're talking about, I'll give you to in a short verse. I don't know if you know the political situation up to October 7th, but the last year, in the year 2023, Israel was basically torn in half. The government was very right-wing, very religious. They were elected by some narrow margin, and they tried to change democracy, and they tried to enforce religious acts. And Israel was turned. There were 40 weeks of protests, stuff that's
I would say Israel is still torn.
Okay. No, of course. I'm just trying to explain what happens, and people.
Yeah, it's true. And then
wait a second. Let me finish. One second. Let me finish. So, and one of those things that happened was that because of the split, people say we will not go to the army anymore because Hasidic Jews in Israel do not join the military. So all of those people, I had to join. It's for me, it was sorry, I had to do it. It's mandatory, but they are exempt. And people say, okay, if you don't do it this way, you're gonna go give the religious people all they want, and they don't have to serve in the military. We don't want to serve again. So the military was shaken, and the entire situation was shaken. And a lot of people think that October 7th happened because of that, because we split up between ourselves, and because we fought between ourselves, and our enemies took advantage and attacked us. And a lot of people after the October 7th talked about let's change our views, let's talk differently, let's try to live together, let's try to work together, let's put our differences aside and stuff like that. But as Aron is saying, you can easily see how people go back to the old ways. So that's what we're talking about.
All right. And again, I apologize.
Actually, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is after October 7th, which was a very, very bad thing for all Israelis, doesn't matter if we believe or not, we were all shaken because of the loss of trust and belief in the government and the possibility that something very terrible could happen very realistically to each and any of us, because it is a small country, and the attack was not there was no actual reason for the attack other than for them hating us, which is already known. But what I'm saying is, when there is like a very big crisis, even like the Second World War or any other crisis, like even I don't know, a hurricane, whatever you usually there is a stronger belief in the way you believed before, or you completely change it. But if you are a believer, you will be a stronger believer, or you will break your belief. But
I can tell you that in an emergency
or don't
situation,
believe after a crisis.
I can tell you that in an emergency situation, humanity, from my perspective, has to override all religiosity, because religiosity is just nonsense that can be swept aside. In real life, real world situations, when there is a hurricane or an earthquake or there's terrible tragedy, I have to join with everybody else in helping the situation, regardless who's involved. It doesn't matter if I agree with you religiously or politically. You're human. I have to help you as a human.
Yeah, but some of the religious people, they say that the way they help is they pray.
Then you're not helping
they
at
have
all.
they have a sentence here that I see written like where I live. It says Tehillim, which is a book against rockets.
Yeah, it doesn't work that well.
We studied. Yeah, I know it didn't, but I mean,
but we don't care about their claims. It's like it's really easy. We can turn off the Iron Dome and we can throw all Tehillim. Let's see which will work. That's the fact that they can claim it doesn't make it true.
Yeah,
that is true. But I mean,
I'm sorry, but we still have more calls, and the show would quickly run into an end.
Yeah,
and my prayers have been answered.
Yeah,
so
of course. Goodbye for now. Good night.
Bye. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.
God have answered my prayers, because we have a believer who wants to talk about evolution, and he says that evolution and God works together.
Okay. So he's not challenging evolution. He's just okay.
Let's see. Yochai?
Yeah.
Hi. Can you hear me?
My English is really bad, so
Okay,
I want to talk in Hebrew.
Ask the question in Hebrew and I will translate to Aron.
Thank you.
אוקיי, אני טוען שהאבולוציה לא מסבירה את ההתחלה. היא אומרת אחרי שיש התחלה, יש התפתחות. בן אדם נולד עם 6 אצבעות, בן אדם נולד עם שיער בפנים, דברים כאלו, בן אדם נולד עם זנב, ואז ככה כאילו נהיה אבולוציה, נהיה יצורים חדשים.
אבולוציה מסבירה הכל, אבל
אבל
לא את
היא לא
ההתחלה.
מסבירה איך נהיה ההתחלה.
ההתחלה של החיים?
אז ההתחלה מבחינתי, ההתחלה של הכל, ההתחלה של החומר, ההתחלה של החוקים.
Okay. Aron, I'm sorry. he's asking, evolution tells us everything that happens after the beginning. Tell us, okay, we have life, and life evolves, and everything, but it doesn't explain the origin. And when I asked him, It's talking about the origin of everything, life, matter, the universe. And I know what's supposed to come next, but I'll give you the benefit to answer him.
So far as I can tell,
ותתרגם לי.
the universe is eternal, was never created. There was cosmic inflation, and we don't know what, if anything, happened before that. But we know that there was never, ever a time when there was just nothing. So atheists do not believe that everything came from nothing. There may have been a previous version of the universe. I've seen a number of physicists talk about that. There have been proposed things like a Big Bang, Big Crunch kind of oscillation, or where the arrow of time points toward entropy and then it points away from entropy, that kind of thing, or vice versa. I don't really care about that. I'm not a physicist. I'm not even a huge fan of the Big Bang cosmology. I just understand that it is the leading theory and that I cannot contest it without being able to propose something better. If I don't have anything better, then I need to sit down and shut up.
Okay, so I'm not going to translate his answer. I'm going to write it later in the chat. You can look at the video later in the chat, and I'll write it in Hebrew so you'll be able to understand the answer, because I don't want to take his precious time, and we have still more calls to go, and our show is really going to an end. But thanks you for the courage to call and ask the question. We had a lot of chat heroes usually in our shows that talk about evolution, but now we have a real expert in our hands, and all of them became mute. So I still give you kudos for calling. So I'll write the answer in the comments. You can check it out tomorrow, okay? אני אכתוב את זה בצ'אט, תראה את זה.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Okay, bye.
Okay, sorry, I thought it was a better question.
So your prayers were not answered?
Nope, there is no God. If there was a God, usually there are a lot of people who talk about the chat and they write all this shit about evolution stuff that we can easily debunk, but they write it in the chat. And we tell them, call us and we'll explain to you what you got wrong, and they never call. Now we have an expert that they don't call. Okay, you're married, so let's see if we'll get an atheist, and he wants to ask you, how do you convince a partner which is a believer? Benny? Benny, שומע?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Benny.
Yes.
Can.
Yeah, fire away.
Okay. First of all, good evening, Aron and Aviv. I'm a big fan of Aron Ra's content. I've been watching all of his stuff.
Thank you kindly.
Yeah, so basically, my girlfriend is a believer, and when I tell her about evolution, she basically says it contradicts the Bible, therefore it's false, and that's where the conversation ends. Now, of course, that's very difficult to work with. Now, you're the expert on evolution. I know from your videos, basically, what I learned from them. But that's about all I know. And I don't feel like I'm a good representative for evolution. Now, I want something to like, if you could, okay, let's do it like this. Let's say she's listening right now. What would you say to make her at least pick her curiosity enough to convince her maybe that there's something here that is worth investigating, or like give some example of evidence for evolution, so that she could reevaluate her position. I hope that question was clear.
What I have been doing is, for a quarter of a century now, I have been offering believers, I will prove that evolution is the truest, best explanation for the origin of our species, that it is the one and only explanation of biodiversity. And I will prove that to your satisfaction. I will do it within a couple dozen mutual exchanges where we, try a Socratic method. I ask you questions, you ask me questions, we both answer each other's questions. Within 24 rounds of that, you will understand and accept that evolution is the one and only explanation of biodiversity, that it is true and valid. And thus, you will be an evolutionist for the rest of your life, but that you will never use that stupid word, because you'll understand why that word was invented and why it doesn't apply. Believers flee from that challenge because they want to make believe things that they already know are not really true.
What do you say, Ben?
Yeah. Okay. Like I'd like to. I can't really. Well, basically, I need to bring her to this challenge in some way. Like, is there a way that I can contact you, Aron Ra, and like get her
Absolutely,
to
yes.
engage in this challenge? I don't know if she'll agree, but okay.
Yep. Contact the host.
Discuss
They
it somewhere.
can share with you my email address, my contacts. If you want to do it as a live video thing, we can do it that way, or we can do it as I would prefer not to do it in private messages, because I want it to be for posterity. I want other people to be able to see the conversation that we're having. I have I have a discussion board called League of Reason, and we can have the discussion there if she likes, if we want to do it in text, and that is actually the best way to do this. But if she wants to just have a live interaction or a series of them, we can do that. Pretty much whatever she prefers.
And she can always call us and speak to us. What?
Okay, here's the thing. The reason I'm calling and not that she's not calling is because she's a bit shy, let's say. But that I can basically be her representative.
I'm just saying.
When it comes to this stuff.
If I'm going to do a Socratic interaction, it does have to be with her.
With her directly? Okay, I get it. I guess I'll have to convince her to come in and engage with you guys.
There's the challenge. Believers want to believe. They don't want to know.
Okay, Benny?
That's awesome. Okay. Yeah. I'll let her know.
Thank you, Connie, for your call.
I'm sure we'll just talk and yeah.
Thank you for your call.
Have a great day. Big fan.
Bye-bye. I want to thank Michaela Mizan. She gave a super chat. She said it's a great show tonight, and hopefully more will come.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you again. We actually at the end of our show. Do you want to take another call, or we're finished?
I enjoy taking calls. If you have a believer, absolutely take that call.
We don't have a believer. I told you the problem is the language. Most of our callers, most of our believers don't speak English, but there's some, maybe let's try one more, and after that maybe not, but we'll finish after that. But there's David, and David says in an atheist, but he wants to talk about the soul, stuff we talked about before, and he wants to talk about the hard problem of consciousness. David, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, David, what you got?
Okay. So, first I want to thank you, Aron Ra, for your content, because when I was in high school, I watched your videos. It was so significant that it kind of, it helped me form lots of the opinions I have today. So, like, thanks in general.
That is the best compliment
also,
I've had in a while.
You mentioned,
so thank you for that.
No problem. Also, you said before that it's not just that there's no evidence for a soul. You said that there is evidence to the positive claim that a soul doesn't exist.
That's correct.
That is interesting. What were you referring to?
I did a number of interviews with neurophilosopher Patricia Churchland and with a neuroscientist. Well, actually, with a panel of neuroscientists. Unfortunately, the videos were not with the neuroscientists. I did one interview on video with a neuroscientist, and I had a group of email communications with a body of neuroscientists who all give me their working experience. There are a number of things that if you want to form a scientific hypothesis, you're looking for data that will either support that hypothesis or that contradicts it. And you're searching for data that will do either of these things. And what they've continuously found is that there's no indication for mind-body dualism. Probably the world's most famous philosopher at the moment, Daniel Dennett, told me directly that there is no support for mind-body dualism at all. We are our bodies. Our brains are what makes us us, cannot be removed from our physical body and put into a different body. Because everything we know, all of our skills and abilities, these are all built into physical synapses in the mind. If there was some way to record your memories and everything about your proclivities as your personality, and try to transmit that to a different body, you would instantly be a different person, because your muscle memory, your synapses, everything are going to be coded to something else. I might have the muscle memory in another person's body to be able to play the piano or guitar, which I cannot do now. And there's no way to take the mind out of a person and put it in storage. It's like when a computer shuts down and you know that once you discharge the capacitors, then you can restart cleanly. But if you don't discharge capacitors, then you won't have a clean restart. We are not a permanent storage of information. We exist in that charge, in the capacity. And once that's discharged, we're gone. We're done. There's no way to store who we are. There's no way to transmit who we are. We can't transmit to another body. We can't do the reincarnation. Sean Carroll did a nice presentation where he did this huge mathematic formula on the board, and he's explaining, and so it's not just neuroscientists and neurophilosophers, it's also physicists. There is no soul. There's no possibility for transmitting this information. And it's not just that there's no possibility, there's contradictions to that. There's physical effects that impair what if we had a soul, the soul would be
I see. Can I comment on that? Because there is something important to mention. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the hard problem of consciousness. Now,
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
I'm a materialist.
He's talking about the hard problem of consciousness.
David Chalmers' hard problem of consciousness is, I'm sorry to have to say this because he's a philosophy professor and I do respect academics, but his argument was the stupidest false dichotomy I've ever heard. I've never ever heard promoted by an academic.
Well, his argument, I want to present it to you the way I understand it.
Let me finish.
I want to know what you're going to have to say about it.
David, let him finish.
Let me finish this, please. His argument, literally, is that you have no consciousness at all, zero consciousness, until you build this many number of neurons. And then when you get to some arbitrary number, the 10 trillionth and 5 neuron, then bing, flip the switch. Now you have 100% consciousness. It don't work that way. It's not all or nothing until a certain point. That was the critical failure of the hard problem, which turned out not to be very hard at all. You have degrees of consciousness. It's not a switch. It's a dial.
I see. Well, look,
I don't know, David, 1 second. I don't know if you're aware of this. I did a debate about a month ago, and it went online on the YouTube channel Rosh Berosh in Hebrew about a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I did a debate on the existence of a soul. And I admit my protagonist wasn't that good. He could have done a better job. But we've talked about those issues. The hard problem, I agree completely with Aron. The hard problem of consciousness isn't really a problem because consciousness, it's not a 0 and 1. It's a process. It's a process that builds over time. And we can see it at children. If you lose part of the process, you will never gain it back. People that will not, people that are born without the ability to hear.
I understand that.
Okay, so what's the issue?
I understand that. Like the problem is I'll tell you where I'm coming from. There are lots of physical processes, right? There are lots of physical processes involving electricity, involving chemistry. For some reason, the physical processes that happen in the brain give rise to consciousness. Nothing else in the universe does, the brain does. What makes the brain so special that it allows consciousness to arise from something that's physical?
It's not just the brain. The brain is primary.
What do you mean?
The brain is primary in our species. It's certainly the majority of it, but it's not limited just to the brain. There are minute traces of consciousness found even in unicellular organisms that don't have neuron 1.
What do you mean by minute traces of consciousness in this case?
Remember I said it's a dial. So you can have very low levels of consciousness, which have been exhibited by protozoans and by slime molds. Slime molds have been able to get through a maze showing not just their ability to calculate, but also their ability to have memory and to estimate, the quickest way through a maze.
So they have memory, right?
Yes.
But what I'm talking about is the subjective experience. Like those processes in the brain, they don't just make us act a certain way. It's not just about behavior that we demonstrate to the outside. There is also a subjective experience that we have. And I don't really see how something like that can come up from physical processes.
Right, and that protozoans have as well.
What as well?
Even the simplest organism has this minute degree. Just as you would argue that a child, an infant.
How do you know that?
Because they demonstrate.
They have the capacity to solve mazes and do a whole bunch of stuff.
That's true. They
but
are.
How do you know that they have
things that if they didn't have that capacity, they would not be able to do? That is the demonstrative test. Yes. And then when you have infants, if I
build a robot which does these things, then would it have consciousness?
Arguably, yes.
Even if it's even if it's not an AI or anything, just something completely mechanical.
Would have to be.
I programmed it.
Okay, so in order to have,
I don't see how it would have an experience of the world. That's really what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the capacity to do things.
How do you recognize experience of the world in another human being?
Let's not even get that complicated.
I don't actually know, to be honest.
At all. In any species at all, even unicellular microbes, how would we recognize that?
To be honest, we just assume it. I don't know if it's necessarily justified.
Okay.
But I know that I have it.
Would you also know that if you brought home your newborn daughter, she's barely able to open her eyes and look at you, does she have consciousness?
Well, I believe that I do. I believe that she does. But
why?
Because of honestly, it's just an intuition thing that comes from emotion. I can't justify it in any way. I can't justify it that anyone else has any kind of experience. I just assume
it was
that.
David Chalmers' argument of the hard problem, then your infant daughter would not have consciousness at all. But in fact, she does. It's a very low level. I don't know
about his argument.
Yeah, it's a very low level, but she's got it. And it will accelerate. It'll take years to get there. It'll take years to get to 50%. But she has it. Very low levels. And so do all other animals. And so do microbes. Does your dog have consciousness?
Well, if I had a dog, again, the most intuitive assumption is that it has.
Yes.
Like, I think that it has, but the only person that I can be 100% sure that he has consciousness is myself, because, I only experience myself. Bingo. And I still don't understand how that experience can come from anything that's physical. And also, I study physics, and I do a whole bunch of things related to it.
Okay.
And I still don't quite get how, I don't quite get how, things moving around, even when those things that are moving around make something that's bigger, and that's moving around, I still don't see where the experience is created.
Help me understand your dilemma. You say you don't understand how these, you said you don't understand how these can happen for physical things. Give me an example of a non-physical thing.
It's also a good well, to be honest, I don't even have a definition of anything that's, I don't have a definition of the word physical. I don't think you either. It's just a word that we use that we understand intuitively.
Made of atoms.
If you want to, I can replace it by things that move around in space. I think it would be a good definition, right?
Is that still atoms?
We are comprised of things that move around in space.
Okay, so that's still atoms then.
Well, yeah, atoms, okay. Molecules, quarks, photons, all of these kinds of things.
Okay.
Those things can perform mechanical work on their surroundings. But the experience part, that's really the thing, that there is no physical quantity to measure that. There is, I can look at the brain and I can see those neurons firing, but I can't find that experience anywhere. But
so when you look at your computer,
that's the only thing I know for certain that exists.
Okay, so when you look at your computer, you know that your computer is registering all of the visual images that you're seeing, not just the shapes, but the colors and their placement and all of that. They're all recorded in terms of numbers, right? I mean, and usually it's just two numbers, right? Isn't it the most common is 0 and 1?
Yeah, it
all
is.
of that somehow translates. Can you explain that?
Well, I can explain why the computer works the way that it works. That's not the question.
Yeah.
But if the computer had if it had an experience of the world, then I would be very surprised.
What is the experience?
I would say that it's a fundamental concept of thought. I don't think it can be defined in terms of other things.
I think that experience,
some concepts are fundamental.
I think that experience is data from senses, and your computer will not have senses for the outside world except on the internet. But if you have a device that has experiential, that has sensory apparatus and a memory of those, so it's recording the memory of those senses, then it has an experience of the outside world.
Even if it's a computer or a robot?
Yep.
That's an interesting view. I'll think about it.
I want to add to my thought. For me, as I said before, why do you think other people have experience? Because you do. You recognize, you have empathy. You recognize that other people are like you.
Nobody else has experiences. Everybody's just a figment of my imagination.
Yeah, people are writing in the chat.
That's kind of an arrogant view,
people are saying that, but for me, it's like I don't think it's that complicated. You're talking about, think about a computer that's have only one very several channels of input and output, and that computer is built on memories and processes, and it builds itself. It's like an AI that builds itself, and so the experience is part of it. It's because it's only connected to those inputs and those outputs. That is the subjectiveness. But it's saying like, I don't understand how matter can do this. I
would say I don't understand how things moving around, interacting with one another, can create an experience. I wouldn't use the word matter because
for me it sounds to me like an argument from ignorance. Sorry, for me that's how it sounds for me. It's like, I don't understand how we can do it. Must be something else. But something it's like
I'm not saying that it has to be something else. I'm also an atheist.
No, but it's like like
I'm not
I don't understand how consciousness can come, so it must be magic.
I'm not saying it has to be magic. I'm saying that it's a bit more nuanced than what you're describing. If I imagine a computer or a brain or anything of the sort, I could imagine something like a brain or very similar to a brain, which has the same kind of chemical reactions inside, but it doesn't have an experience of the world. I think that the term for that is the philosophical zombie. It's something that looks as if it has an experience of the world, and it's comprised physically of things that make it look that way, but actually
I try to put it. Let's put it in another way.
The possibility of something like that.
Let's put it in another way. I ask you this one. Let's imagine there's an AI. There's an AI. We started an AI, and it comes and it tells you, "I have experience. I can feel. I have experiences. I can experience the world." How do you know if he's telling the truth?
That's the exact problem. That if you think, without answering the question of how an experience can arise from physical matter, you can't really know. And
so, if you can't know,
to be honest, I don't know.
The answer is we don't know. We don't know exactly. We still don't know. This is the fact. We still don't know exactly the way consciousness works, but we have a lot of evidence to do it. We know what happens when the input is being interrupted. We know what happens when the brain gets damaged. We see that again. I invite you to see my debate. It's still and I brought out the case.
I watched your debate with Michael Avram about whether or not
with Michael Avram. With another debate.
Yeah, I know, but I can watch the other one too.
Okay, so I brought the case of Phineas Gage, a guy that a metal stick got shot through his head, and he still lived after that incident. But everything about him changed. His personality changed. Is the way he looked at the world.
Yeah, I know it's
so different. So it's a really famous cases, and I brought the cases of people who have.
It definitely makes it. Yeah. It definitely makes it look like consciousness comes from the brain. I agree with you that that's the way it looks. It looks as if you can't change anything about your consciousness. You can't go asleep without the brain reacting in a certain way, right? So yeah, it seems like it comes from the brain somehow, but I'm sorry, I don't think you provided a satisfactory explanation for how it happens.
I don't think that nobody can right now, but it's like telling me, it's like trying to explain to you how a motor works, a car motor works, while it runs and I cannot shut it off. I cannot take it apart. I need to explain to you the way it works, but it's always running. I don't know how to do that. Maybe in the future we will be able to, but still, magic isn't the answer. You can't go to, I can't explain it, so it must be magic. So it must be another, and I said again in the debate, it's not like the concept of a soul come without any ontological process. It's like, okay, we have a soul. Where does it exist? In what plane? Where does it go? How does it work? You're actually answering the question with a much harder question.
I know. Occam's razor is important. I'm taking it into account.
Yeah. So
don't worry. I always keep Occam's razor in mind. It's important.
Yeah. So that's my take on it. And
anyway,
thank you for your call, because I have a call for I have a believer. So I want to take it.
I also want to thank the caller.
That's good. So I'm going to give him the place.
I want to thank the caller for the best question we've had today.
Yeah. You got high praise from
Aron. Keep on the good work.
In my book, it's a great honor. Bye. Okay, so we don't have a lot of callers. The show is really supposed to end, but we do have a believer. His name is s5e10. I think it's s5e10. I don't know. He's asking about the concept of believing in God. Hello?
Okay. Yeah. It's pronounced safe. Thank you for answering my call. Yeah, safe.
Says, yeah. How are you? What's your question?
Oh, so I just want to say, I guess my opinion. I feel like when it comes to believing in God, it shouldn't be based on facts or testable evidence, because obviously I'm a believer. I believe in God. I believe that we are here for a test. Now, for example, if you had a test and you had the answers given, then it wouldn't necessarily be a test. It would just be more like an experiment or a test run. I don't know how to explain it really, but I believe, because I believe in God, so we're here. It's a test. It's just of whether we believe in God, whether we believe in God or not. So if we have scientific evidence that we can test and we can prove or disprove that God does indeed exist, then I think that would defy the logic behind a God existing. I don't know if you understand what I mean, but I hope you did.
Aaron?
I did not understand that as a question.
I think what he's saying, we hear that argument a lot when people call us. They're saying that that belief as its own merit. So if you did have evidence for God, and you can prove that this exists, so it's not worth it, but you won't have to believe, and you lose something in the process. Am I right?
Have exactly the opposite opinion, of course.
That's not exactly my question, though.
So please, that's what I understood. So please ask again.
If there is proof, if there is a God, correct, and it is a test, wouldn't the existence of proof of there being a God just deny and go in like contradiction with the whole test and everything?
No.
If life is a test, I understand, but if life is a test, then why would there be answers given, like scientific proof, for example, like stuff like that? I believe it should be based on faith and faith only. It can be backed up by other factors, of course, but I believe the specific things should be faith, because it is a test. If you have a test that you have the answer for, then it's not really a test.
Okay, so what you're saying is that you should believe impossible nonsense for no good reason, and that's the only reason we should believe it, is because there is no reason. And so you should be absolutely convinced of what is not evidently true. And we have rivers of blood for every religion that have flowed because this person didn't believe what that person said, and that person didn't have a valid argument to make the point, but just killed the other person because, hey, I want to make believe this version of whatever, and you insist on evidence. Fuck you, I kill you, you're dead, and now my religion proceeds. If there was a God, if there really was a God,
that. Yes.
If I haven't understood your question well enough, go ahead.
My question is basically, if there is a God, let's say, for the sake of the argument, and life was indeed a test, I don't think that there would be proof of existence, like that there would be proof that God does indeed exist, that we can check scientifically, of course, because then it would not be a test. That's
so you're going to kill somebody.
From that concept only.
You're going to kill somebody over how they answer a single question.
I never said I was going to kill anyone.
Hold on.
I never said I was killing anyone.
In a hypothetical situation, such as I'm describing now, hypothetically, you are going to murder someone over how they answer a particular question. You know the answer. You know that they won't know the answer. You know what clues would help them, and you refuse to provide them. But you're going to ask the question, and you're going to kill them when you know they're going to answer incorrectly. Is that moral?
Are you speaking as if in that scenario that I am God?
Yeah. Because God is going to, according to many religions, God is going to murder everybody, and worse, torture everyone forever over what or whether they believe. The Christians say that the Muslims are all going to burn in hell. The Muslims say that the Christians are all going to burn in hell for different reasons. But in either case, if there was a God, he would know how to save everyone. And he would know that faith is absolutely the worst possible thing you can do to anybody, because faith means never knowing the right answer, but killing everybody over the wrong answer because you don't have a fucking clue and you don't want one, because that's what faith is. Faith is the most dishonest and auto deceptive position it is possible to have. The only way anything could ever be more dishonest than faith is to be a religious apologist. So if there was a God, he would absolutely forbid faith as being the only way to come to the wrong answer every time.
I see your point.
I just want to add, from my point of view, it looks like you're playing both sides. If God did exist and you had evidence for him, you would show us the evidence and show, here's God. And because you don't have the evidence, you're saying, evidence are not necessary, I believe it anyway. It's like you're playing heads or tails. Heads you win, tails I lose. So for me, it's like you're edging your bets. And furthermore, if the God you're talking about will allow so many people die and live their life in agony and pain just because he wants them to find the real answer, I don't want to answer to the questions of that God. I don't think he's worthy of the titled God. So I don't understand how that can be an issue.
Yeah, I understand your point. Obviously, I can't speak on behalf of all religions, but I can tell you from what I've heard from scholars and people who dug deep into the religion that I follow, that my religion is, I guess you could say, it's more inclusive in a way, in a sense that, how do I explain this? Say, for example, you never heard of God, you won't get tortured, you won't go to hell. Okay?
Yeah.
That's for example.
So don't tell me.
But,
yeah.
So don't tell me.
Sorry?
If I will never hear about your God and won't go to hell, don't tell me.
Yeah, and I have to say that any God that's going to judge you, for a God to judge you over what or whether you believe, that's already immoral. So God is immoral. He's evil for doing that. For knowing that he's not judging you over whether you're good or bad, because it doesn't matter how good you are if you don't believe.
How so? I think all religions. I can't speak on behalf of all of them, but you've obviously heard the concept of good deed and bad deed, sin. You know?
I live immersed in Christianity and sometimes with Islam.
Yeah.
Both of which say that to not believe is to do evil. The Quran says that over and over again. And the Quran says over and over again that those who do not believe are evildoers simply because they don't believe. They are doing evil. But God then is having half the planet die, half the planet go into eternal, merciless, stupid, pointless torture because they didn't believe this lie, and the other half is going to merciless, stupid, indefensible torture because they didn't believe this lie. And God could have saved them all if he hadn't relied on faith, which is believing in lies you made up.
Yeah, I understand your point. But it also comes to another point that I was talking about, where it comes to, I think, in some religions, they define the meaning of life as the worship of God. So if you do not worship God, then you are not, I wouldn't say wasting your life, but you're not doing what you're made to do.
What about the religions that don't have a God at all?
Is there an example?
Animism, shamanism, Chinese ancestor worship, which does have lesser gods, but not a greater God. Then Druidism. There's a handful of religions
they're still considered the higher power, are they not?
No. They have like a Taoist concept that there is nature itself, which acts without intent, so it cannot be said to be benevolent nor malevolent to anything. And gods are just characters within creation. And this is true even of the ancestor worship, the Chinese ancestor worship, and certain Thai religions and so forth. So there's a handful of religions that either don't have gods or the gods are lesser deities at best. So what about them?
I see. Honestly, I'm not too, experienced.
What we come down to is this. And this is important. So I want to be able to say this. We have a handful of religions who have the ultimate God, right? Which other religions don't have. The handful of religions have this ultimate God. And you will believe what our phony baloney clerics say, or else they will take all of your property and they will take everything and kill you and enslave your family. Or you can believe them and then we'll still enslave you to some degree, and we'll still take your children and molest them, and we'll still take 10% of your income, and all of this because we're selling a lie, and you better believe it. That's what religion is.
Yeah.
Let's say for the question. Let's ask a question. Let's say that religion is false. Let's say there is no God, and what Aron says is completely true, and it's all fake. Would you want to know about it?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's something that you worthy knowing? Sense? How would you go about it? How would you go about it? Explode and ask yourself, is this true?
Yeah, of course. Same way how I would like to know more about the atheist standpoint and mindset.
I'll tell you why I asked the questions. No, I tell you why I asked the questions because for me it looks like the way you're phrasing it's a little weird. It's like if you told me you had a dog, and I ask you to can you show me the dog? You would have shown me the dog. But I ask you, do you believe in God? Say, can you show me God? There are no evidence. Why God is on another standard? Why doesn't he have to answer to the same question? Why doesn't he why doesn't there have to be evidence for his existence? Why is he exempt? And you started the first question you called with, let's say there is a God. If there is a God, maybe telling the answers is wrong. But, how do we differ? There are two options. Let's say there are two options. I'm not saying they're the only options, but let's say there are two options. One of them is the God that you described that doesn't want you to know he exists and he needs you to believe. And the other option is there is no God. Nothing. How do we differ between those two options? How do we know which one? What's the difference between them?
There's a big difference, but in the end, you
how?
Can't actually
What's the difference?
One with the other.
What's the difference? How can we tell which one is true?
They're opposites. One of them is something existing, and the other is something.
No, I didn't say. I didn't say again. I didn't say this is the only two options. I didn't say. But for me, from my point of view, a God that does not exist is equal to a God that doesn't show himself in any meaningful way and expect you to believe it on faith. For me, they're exactly the same. There's no difference between those two positions.
If the God requires faith, the God is evil.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Let's say, just think about the God. Think about which God we gave you rationality. You can think, you can react, you can examine the universe, you can see, you can reason, and you have all those magnificent tools that supposedly the God gave you, and He tells you to ignore all of it, and just take it on faith. It's the greatest evil that I can think of.
I think, in my opinion, am I allowed to say that? I think you should not use faith when it comes to anything, except when it comes towards God, because I believe in God, and I think that believing in God is based on belief. I know it sounds
in logic.
I got to jump in here.
Circular.
I got to jump in. You believe because you believe.
Yes.
You believe because you believe.
It's a bit circular. No, I didn't say that. I said I believe in God solely based on belief. I don't have any evidence that there is a God, because I just said before,
have a reason,
if there was evidence,
right?
Evidence that there is a God.
Do you have a reason?
Yeah, I have a reason, obviously.
Do you have a reason at all?
Yeah, I do. Well, yeah, I do. Do you want me to say it?
Please.
Yeah, so first of all, I was born in a religious household. I think that actually plays a big part. So from the get-go, I was always raised and taught that there is a God. So I didn't have, I say, a situation where I should deny that fact or be suspicious in it.
Okay, well, hold on a second.
Second is,
hold on a second before you continue. Same condition for me, except when you say you want to deny that fact, God is not a fact.
No,
I was raised in a religious household. I was constantly told that God is a conclusively proven scientific fact. It turned out later that no, he's not.
Yeah, and I'm also saying exactly that. I'm saying that there is no scientific proof. It's like that God does exist. That's the whole point, kind of what.
Okay,
what
why
I'm
do you
trying to
believe
say.
now?
Now?
Yeah.
Well, first of all,
now
I'm
that you
in the
know
same,
that it's not a fact.
I'm in the same mindset. Yes. So first of all, I'm in the same mindset. Second of all, it also comes down to belief. I believe that there is more meaning to life. It could be, it's a bit vague, but I believe that there is more meaning to life, and all of this.
I'm not understanding what you're
be
saying.
exactly
There's more being something.
For me, it sounds like. For me, it sounds like Aaron said. You believe because it makes you feel good. It just makes you feel good.
What did you say about there's more being something?
Meaning.
Oh, not being meaning. Okay, so it's more meaningful for you to pretend there's a God than not.
Well, for me, obviously, because I believe, I don't pretend, but yes, I do think
make believe,
gives more meaning
pretend,
to me,
those both mean the same thing.
No, what is the meaning? You're talking about the meaning. As a believer, what is the meaning? Because if God is real and you're part of his creation, you're a cog, you're a screw, you're a nail, you're a grain of dust in the big machine of his creation.
Yes.
Is that meaningful to you?
That is true.
This is meaningful for me. If I look at, I'm alive in a universe that shouldn't allow my existence. I have one life to live, and I can do it the best way I can. I'm the opposite of entropy. For me, this is much more meaningful to be cognitive, to know, to experience. For myself as a reasonable person, it's much more meaningful than to be some kind of a dusty screw in someone else's machine.
I have to go shortly, but I just want to express something. If God were real, he would be guilty of such evil for misdirecting so many people.
By whose standards?
But by anybody's standards, he would be guilty of misdirecting so many people.
Yeah.
Because the dominant religion in the world
were real, then
I'm sorry, what?
Would you sorry. I was going to say, in that scenario, if God were real, then human standards wouldn't amount to anything.
Well, human standards still amount to something, and God has violated objective morality. God has not risen to our standards. God doesn't have standards himself. He has violated ours. He created us to have these standards, and then he violated them. He's misled and deceived most everybody, if not everybody, and he is going to torture us according to some religions. He's going to force us to be reincarnated as something else according to other religions. Nothing God ever does makes any fucking sense at all. And all the scriptures contradict all of the others so that they're violent in their opposition, so that everybody's killing everybody over their different versions of an imaginary phantasm that obviously doesn't exist. If your God was real, then that would mean that logic doesn't mean anything, evidence doesn't mean anything, literally nothing means anything anymore, and we would have to, according to most religions, we would have to spend eternity, forever, times a godzillion infinities, we would have to spend kissing the ass of a God that is inexplicably insecure. That makes no sense. None of the scriptures make any fucking sense, and God doesn't correct them. God doesn't come down to say to everybody and say, hey, these religions are all wrong on this point. Christianity, you completely fucked up on this and this and this. Islam, please, come on. This, and this are all wrong. Fix yourselves. God didn't do any of that. God's fault. Nobody else can be blamed but God. God fucked all that up. And there's nobody that can defend that. If there was a God, then life, existence, everything, nothing means anything anymore. We're all doomed to an eternity of being punished for not believing the right set of lies from the right set of idiots.
Aaron, you forgot to drop the mic. Okay, s5e, we have a great fun talking to you, but the show must end, and we already went forward way past our time. Thank you for your call, and I encourage you to call us again and talk about those subjects. Thank you, and have a great day and a great week. Sure. And the show basically ended, but there's someone who still wants to talk to you, and it's not really a caller. It's someone who you know. It's someone you know. So he waited all the show. I just bringing him to say hello. Tomer.
Hello.
I'm guessing you know who's Tomer. Tomer.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Tomer, thank
you.
Tomer, you need to stay. You called us through the web. You need to stay on the tab. You can't change the tab. If you change the tab, we won't hear you.
Okay. I can't change the tab. That is so stupid. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, Tomer.
Okay, very good. This is so stupid. Yeah, thank you very much. Hi, everybody. How are you doing?
I'm so happy to hear your voice, Tomer, even though I'm going to hear it again inside of an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. If for those of
we waited like an hour and a half to.
Tomer is a part of a series of videos that Aron is doing. Is going over the Bible and showing how ridiculous everything is. So,
and Tomer also joins me on reading the Book of Mormon, which starts in 45 minutes. Yeah. So I'm kind of delighted to hear, and I should have expected that I would be hearing Tomer if I'm going to be doing Atheist Experience in Israel.
He waited the entire show. He waited the entire show. Give him the credit.
And he can talk to me anytime.
Yeah, that's why I waited to bring him in last, because I think if he wants to talk to you, he can just talk to you. That's our platform.
I very often tap Tomer when I need references from the Hebrew Bible of what the Jewish scholars say about it, because it's not always on the shows that I'm doing. Sometimes it's doing other things, and I always need this kind of expertise, and I'm delighted that I can tap Tomer for this kind of information when
if you ever need, also you can ask us. We'll always be happy to help and translate and everything like that. Anything you want to say, Tomer, before we finish the show, because we really must go. It's probably one of the longest shows we did.
Yeah. For anybody who listens, I highly encourage you to check out Aron Ra's Blasphemous Bible and Reading Joseph Smith, because it's so fun. Commentaries are fun. Joseph Smith is dumb, and I encourage everybody to listen to either the Bible or the Book of Mormon, whatever you want to choose. And that's it. That's all I have.
I second that.
Yep, and I back it as well. Thank you, Tomer.
Okay, Tomer. Have a great day. And good night. Bye.
Thank you.
I got to go too. Get ready for the next show.
Yeah, we finished. Our show is finished. I just want to say thank you for everyone. I just want to say thank you for Aron for agreeing to do this show with me. And for me, it's a dream come true. And I'm just want to say, I forgot to say in the beginning, Sarel is the king. Sarel is the man. He's the one who had the balls to ask what any all of our other hosts were just too chicken shit to do. We didn't ask, and Sarel asked, and that's why Aron came. For me, I will forever be in his debt. Thank you for Tal, who produced this show. Thank you for Niva and Sawel, who are screeners and screened your calls. Thanks to everyone who called, everyone who contributed. And again, for me, it was a real pleasure and prerogative to just be in the same, share the screen with you, Aron. So again, thank you so much for your time.
Don't blow me up too much, but I did have fun tonight. I would do it again.
Yes. For me, that's a win. I take it as a win.
All right. Good night.
Good night, guys.